We do have a quorum, Angie. I'm hoping Mouche is still joining us, but if you want to call to order, I would certainly understand that.
Sure, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Can we go ahead and start with roll call, please?
Yes. Lee,
Present.
Savula, Lyra, Roberts,
Here.
Payne, Wenzelberger,
Present.
Yang,
Present.
Johnson, Anne Marie,
Present.
Hesse. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Heather. Okay, we'll start with the land acknowledgement, which I will read. We are gathered here on the lands that were originally home to the Menominee and Ho-Chunk nations. We honor the Menominee and Ho-Chunk communities and are grateful for their stewardship of the land and waters. We acknowledge these ancestral grounds as sacred and remember the complex history of settler colonialism on these lands and the effects that persist today. We commit to a restorative and healing relationship of the original inhabitants and our community.
All right.
Next, we've added the mission statement.
We did. We discussed it at the last minute.
That's right.
At the
Okay.
last minute, at the last meeting.
Mm-hmm. I don't have that in front of me. Let me, there it is. Okay.
Okay.
I'm happy to read that as well. The mission of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee is to create a more welcoming, connected, and equitable Oshkosh by consciously including the richness and complexities of marginalized voices in its planning and function. All right. Thank you. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm toggling between screens here. Okay, so next we're going to approve the minutes from our January 24th meeting. Is there anything that anyone wants to bring up for discussion or questions from the minutes? It feels like that was so long ago.
It was actually 5 weeks because of the way this all fell, so.
Sure, well, maybe that's what it was, that extra week. Any comments, questions, discussions? If not, we can go ahead and make a motion to approve.
I move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Anne Marie.
Second.
Thank you, Me. Okay. Heather, will you take roll, please?
Yes. Roberts,
Aye.
Wenzelberger,
Aye.
Yang,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Okay. Michelle, did we have any citizen statements?
We do not have any citizen statements or public comments.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Next, we have our city attorney, Lynn Lawrence, joining us. Thank you, Lynn, for joining us tonight. You're going to be reviewing you'll be reviewing some new, I'll just let you go ahead.
Rules.
Yes.
I shut everything else down, so hopefully that took away my bandwidth and I sound a little better, because I hate doing this with no screen. So if it gets bad, Michelle, give me a thumbs down and I'll turn my video back off. But hopefully shutting everything down took care of it. I'm going to just give you a quick overview of the general rules of order that were adopted by the council at their December meeting. They apply to all boards and commissions. And we kind of it's going to look really familiar to all of you. We rearranged them a little bit and added some things, and I'll go through the different sections and I'll note what we added, but overall, it's not really a huge change. I believe that Heather sent a copy of these out with your agenda. The first section covers scheduling and locations of meetings. This is all the same. Mark's the one who made the big change in that and is sending you all back to in person. But the rules are basically the same that they have been. You hold regular meetings at a regular time and place. You can have special meetings. We televise and provide streaming as staffing and other things permit. Remote participation, because of all the things that we've learned through all the last 2 years, I guess it's been, of COVID, we've made some changes to the rules to kind of bring in remote participation as an option moving forward in some specific circumstances. It's not going to be for everybody's convenience, but for ADA issues, if someone would have a legitimate issue, they can contact staff and request an accommodation for ADA. The other thing would be if you have a consultant or a presenter, say you have somebody from another community that is doing something really cool and you guys want to talk about it, but it's expensive to fly that person in from Quebec, or why that is the first place that came into my head, I do not know, but wherever you want to fly them in from, and you said, hey, we'd like to have them present, we can do that with a virtual option or a remote option for them. That would be something that you'd want to talk to your staff person. They coordinate with our media and IT people, and that's a possibility under the rules now, which wasn't really available prior to all this. But again, we've gotten pretty good at remote. Participants do need, if you are physically having a meeting at a physical one location, members must be physically present to participate and vote. The same remote rules that have applied in the past will continue to apply. If you do have remote, you have to have a system that's good, apparently better than mine when I'm running 6 different windows in the background, but that seems to have fixed itself here. You have to speak clearly. When you're not speaking, we ask people to mute. All votes have to be by a roll call vote, no in favor. So those are kind of the basic rules for your meetings. The next section covers rules of procedure. It starts out with a new section. Some of the council members and some of our boards and commission chairs at their meetings asked for a better way of understanding the relationship of boards and commissions, and I'm just going to hold that up and try and. So we developed some flow charts that are included in the materials that I sent to you. See, I don't need to share a screen, Mark. I'm good. Old school. But the one that I'm going to kind of go through with you guys is the advisory one. So just taking a step back, the city of Oshkosh is a city council manager form of government. So the city council is responsible for establishing policy, passing the ordinances, adopting a budget, adopting a strategic plan and goals, appropriating money, and kind of developing that overall vision for the city. And the city manager is then responsible for implementing those policies and managing the daily operations. So, and also assisting the council to develop those policies and that vision. Boards and commissions are important supporting entities for that. And generally, the boards and commissions and your actions within some of the boards and commissions are going to generally fall into 3 categories. They're going to be advisory or legislative, sometimes I'll call them, independent legislative, and hearing and appeals. Again, you guys are primarily going to be advisory legislative. Independent legislative are things like the RDA and the library, where they're truly independent entities under the statute, but they also can act in advisory functions as well. And then hearing and appeals, Plan Commission does some of those, the Board of Zoning Appeals, Police and Fire Commission, Board of Review, those would be entities that conduct hearings and those things. So again, you guys are advisory. If you want to look at what all the other boards and commissions do and what all boards and commissions we have, we did also include Addendum A on these rules. And that's basically a list of all the boards and commissions for the city and a short summary of what they do and what category they fall into. So going through that flow chart for the advisory boards, items come before your board or commission basically in 3 ways. You can get a request from someone in the public, you can have your staff person bring it to you, or the board or commission or council can get something referred to you from the council or directly from from your board and commission. Hey, I have a great idea. Can we put this on one of our future agenda items? From there, the staff person is going to do that initial review, and they're going to talk to their department head. They may talk to the city manager. They may talk to other divisions and departments. They're going to look at how to prioritize the item given the urgency of maybe a particular circumstance, the time commitment that's required to bring it forward. Some things are really quick, and other things maybe they need me to do a legal review of, or they need input from another board and commission. So they're going to look at all of those kind of things. They're going to look at if we need some particular expertise to help in developing this, and any other relevant factor that they might come up with. They are going to then also talk to other city staff and say, hey, is this something that comes through our committee, it's exclusively in our committee, or is it something that maybe relates to multiple committees? And then they're going to come back to you and say, here's what I did, here's what I found out, here's how I'm looking at sending this off for input with another board. What do you guys think on that? We're looking at, is this something that falls directly within the duties and role of our board or commission, or does it fit in another committee or board or commission? Again, your board or commission is created by an ordinance, and you have a specific role and function just like everybody else in that long list of Appendix A. And so we look at, you know, which board or commission does it fit in best, or which one, multiple ones may it fit in. Once it goes through there, if it gets placed on your agenda, you guys take action. We also included in here some reporting back. So we've had a lot of changeover with staff, and I think that probably your staff has been on with you since the beginning, so they're probably doing, and I've seen it on your agenda, so I know they're doing a pretty good job of bringing things back. But we are particularly training some of our new staff. We've had some turnover in other departments. Make sure you come back to your boards and commissions so that they don't work on these things and then think they go off into a black hole somewhere. So that reporting and coming back, so they is built into these charts. The biggest thing that we tried to work in when we were working on is how to interrelate between different boards and commissions and make that process flow smoothly, how to teach our staff to talk to each other, talk to your board and commission, bring things back to your board and commission, and those types of things. So hopefully this is a good visual representation for you and helps boards and commissions. I will always tell you, anytime we try and fit things into a neat little chart, we're going to find some circumstances that don't fit neatly in the little chart. So we've also built in some flexibility there, and you know, we can work with things as the need may arise. Following those charts, we have your quorum and voting requirements. A majority constitutes a quorum. You heard Michelle, most of you, whoever was the last one to come on didn't hear, but Michelle was counting as everybody was popping on to make sure we had a majority. A lesser number may adjourn. you don't take up business, you're just going to have to adjourn. And that's why we get into, well, I'll jump to the next section, but about attendance and excusal, we ask you to give us at least 24 hours notice. If you suddenly become ill or have something come up at the last minute, we understand that as well. But if you can give us more notice, it allows Michelle to twist some arms and make some calls and try and get a alternate or somebody on there so that we can still hold the meeting. A majority vote of those present and voting are required. So if you have a 5-member quorum, 3 people are needed to pass it. You do have the option of having 2 alternates. I didn't look, Michelle, are both your positions are not both filled at this time?
We don't have alternates
Are
now.
currently vacant,
Okay.
as we actually have recently moved some alternates to full-time members, which is great.
That's good. Yeah. Now we just got to backfill. So that's good. Rules of order. Also in the sheets that we gave you are parts that look kind of, and that's going to glare. All right. They look kind of like that. Those charts are basically our attempt to reduce 900 pages of Robert's Rules of Order into something that's a little more government friendly, easier to just take a glance at, look at, go, I want to do this. How do I do it? And give you that kind of quick research, quick answer to your questions. The charts are set up so that you'll have the action. It'll let you know if a second is required, if it's debatable, amendable, and what your vote is. Most things, again, are going to be a majority vote of those present and voting. There are a few things that require a supermajority vote, and those are noted in the chart. Following that, we have rules of pertaining to individuals addressing boards and commissions. There's 2 things I really want to hit on that. Each board or commission is allowed to make your own rules. So Wisconsin has a open meetings law. Individuals are allowed to attend and listen to your boards and commissions, but that doesn't necessarily mean they get to talk. So with the exception of certain things like public hearings and other matters where statutes require that we have people talk, generally the things that are coming before your board, people are not required to have input on. It's desirable though, right? But it's also probably a good idea to have some kind of rules. So if you have the ability to have people speak and you guys have both public input on your agenda items and I believe also just general statements, it's good to have rules for people. How much time are you allowing? What do you allow it by each individual? And once you make those rules, stick to them. Because if you don't stick to them and apply them differently for one person or the next person, that's where people start to feel slighted, start to feel like they're being treated differently and problems are caused. So we suggest you figure out a rule and kind of stick to it. The other thing I wanted to touch on, unfortunately, is civility. The city of Oshkosh has adopted the Civility Pledge. We didn't used to spend a lot of time training on disruptive individuals. Unfortunately, we've actually had a few instances lately. And what we found works really well when you guys get back into person, if you had somebody who was disruptive, we recommend you take a break. If you are on being televised, have them stop the camera at that point. Take a break, stop the camera, just take a pause so that person can hopefully calm down. If you would ever feel genuinely threatened, if the person is making threats or so disruptive you aren't able to do the business of the meeting, you may need to call the police. It's best if maybe the chair and your staff people talk about that a little bit ahead of time so that you know, hey, Michelle is always going to have her phone with her at the meeting. And if, you know, Angie gives her the cue, then Michelle is going to step to the side and dial 911. So just so you have, it's best to plan and know what you're doing. But what we found actually has worked pretty well for us is taking that break and just calming things down and then coming back. So those are the rules. As I said, a lot of them are not really that much different. I don't know if anyone has any questions for me on those, or otherwise I will let you get back to your agenda because you got lots to cover tonight.
I just would like to reiterate what Lynn mentioned, and I had not shared with the committee yet, is that as of March, we are going back to in-person meetings. I had already sent out the agenda before council had approved that for going back to whoever approved it to go back to in-person. So as of March, we will be back to in-person meetings, which will be actually kind of new for us. But I think we're all looking forward to that.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for
Thank you,
letting me
Lynn,
come
for
in.
Thank you, Lynn.
those updates. Thank you. Okay. That was our presentation from Lynn Lawrence and our city attorney. Next, we have a presentation from our library on community programming. And
If you don't mind, I can introduce
sure.
our library director. Oh, there he is, Jeff Gilderson-Dewey. And I told him about the committee's interest in outreach and your interest in what he does, what they do at the library, and that you wanted to learn more about all the different programming that they offer to the community. So Jeff was generous with his time and able to join us tonight to share a little bit with you on that. So thank you so much for joining us, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
It's no generosity. I'm really honored to be asked to speak to the committee. I'm excited to be here. I thank all of you for your decision to serve and to help the city get stronger and represent more voices in all of our activities throughout the city of Oshkosh. It can only make us stronger and make us better. So I'm excited to have you helping us with this and to be here today. I did share with Michelle, and she put in your packet a 2-page, we call our summary. Actually, we call it the placemat edition of our strategic plan, our mission, vision, and goals. So if we were having a breakfast, we'd set one of these at every place so that people could look at them and children could color on them and things like that. But before I just launch into that, I'd be interested in hearing from you as far as what sorts of questions motivated you to ask about the library. Let's start there. What sorts of questions or thoughts do you have about the library and the library's role in the community that I might address for you?
This is Beth Robertson. One of the things that came up is that as we're trying to sort of, I don't want to say assess how our community, the status of our current status of our community, we discovered that there's a lot of things we don't fully know about in terms of, but like, for example, you guys offer a lot of different opportunities for older adults, those with memory loss or caregivers. I don't think that this committee is fully aware of what you offer, how you maybe reach out, or what you do specific to different diversified populations. So we were trying to get an understanding of what's currently happening.
Thank you, Beth. I can share a small list. There are things that are going on here that I don't have my finger on the pulse of all of it, because our staff is very active in serving the community in so many ways. So as you mentioned, we have programming that's involved with the elderly community, and not so much necessarily the elderly community, but folks who are suffering from dementia. We have two partnerships and programs that take place here in the library. One is the memory cafes for folks with more advanced dementia, and a new partnership called MindWorks, which is for folks with more early onset dementia issues. The MindWorks program is brand new with us. We've just started doing it. It allows activities with folks who are in the early stages of dementia, and it also gives a respite to their caregivers. So there are volunteers that work with the people who are dealing with dementia, and that gives a 2 or 3 hour break for their caregivers. Of course, the library is long known for children's programming, focused around literacy and learning. We do some traditional story times, but in a few years back, we developed a specialized approach to story time that we call High Hopes. It's aimed at the birth to 4-year-old, and it's aimed at their parents as well. And it teaches low cost, easy skills for parents as their children's first teachers. It focuses around 5 key pre-literacy skills, or activities, I should say, and those are talk, sing, read, write, and play. So we try to encourage parents to be engaged with their children in those key developmental years and give them very simple, inexpensive, no cost activities that they can engage with their kids that will enhance those children as far as their future ability to learn and grow. So not so much necessarily age-based, but the focus on use of our facility here in the time coming out of the pandemic is really on community pandemic recovery. So in that regard, we've just restarted working with the County Bar Association, free legal service consultation clinics. And those will take place here in Oshkosh, as well as at the Neenah Public Library and the Menasha Public Library. I believe it's once a month. And that allows people who are in the legal system, representing themselves perhaps, to have a short consultation with full attorney-client privilege on a pro bono basis with no fees charged. And those were very popular before the pandemic era began, and we're hoping to try to get those running again. The library served as a free vaccination clinic for the county health department. Those have ended here, but those were incredibly well attended, incredibly popular, and we felt great being part of that effort. We are about to begin a partnership with the State Division of Workforce Development, in which Workforce Development will present workshops for people who are wanting a deeper, more thorough participation in the labor market to get jobs or to position themselves to get better jobs. They'll be doing workshops, and then later, beginning in March, and we're almost there. I've been saying beginning in March, but March is tomorrow. They are also going to be scheduling one-on-one counseling sessions with job seekers here at the Oshkosh Public Library. So those are some of our key outside partnerships. As far as our programming, we offer a wide variety of STEM programming, craft programs for all ages. The last couple of years, we've, as you would guess, literacy and reading and lifelong learning are key values of the library, and those are spelled out in our plan document that I shared with you as well. So we've got the traditional summer reading campaign that many people know about, that help kids combat the summer slide, the loss of skills that then need to be remediated at the beginning of the new school year. But we've also instituted the Wild Winter Read-Off for these darker months to encourage people of all ages read and to and discuss and enjoy their literacy skills. So that's a short, quick list, Beth. We're doing lots more. I encourage you to take a look at our website. If you go to the www.oshkoshpubliclibrary.org, go all the way to the bottom of the page, and there's a sign up for our free electronic email newsletter. And that's really a great place just to find out what's going on here. I do want to say one quick thing before I give up my soapbox here. Our library board and the library staff revised or re-energized our strategic plan. It's about a year old now, and the top strategic goal that rose to the top as we thought about the library's role in the community going forward is goal number 1, to be a community-driven library. And that is so important to us, and we're beginning to work on ways to better harvest the kinds of comments that come to us, to engage with people within the community like yourselves, to be able to hear your thoughts about what are the challenges of living in Oshkosh, what kind of a community do people envision wanting to live in, and then trying to find library responses that can help people further those goals. So from that perspective, I want to put in a plug to any of you to consider service on the Oshkosh Public Library Board at some point, or perhaps if you know people who you think, who have a passion for literacy and learning, encourage them to put an application in with the city's boards and commissions application form, and that's on the city's website. We definitely need more diverse voices on our board of trustees. I've tried to recruit diverse board members in the past and have had uneven success, limited success in that regard. So from that perspective, I would hope that both this committee could in future be a sounding board for us as far as perhaps seeking your advice as to plans or ideas that we might pursue, but also that maybe some of you would consider serving on the library board or connecting to folks that you know who might have an interest in the library. So that's my plug for board service. Are there other questions? Beth, did that answer your question adequately?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And thank you for, reminding us about the board possibilities and things like that. Thank you.
Are there any other questions that were part of what prompted you to ask me here today?
I don't have a question. I have a comment. Jeff, my family and I were big fans of the public library where we visit once every week or 2 weeks. And I just have to commend at least the children's department. Every time I'm in there, I see really a good variety of diverse books that are presented and displayed. And I feel that there's real intention in trying to promote diverse books. And so I just wanted to make a comment that that makes me feel seen and for my children to feel seen. So good job on that, and hope we can continue that. So thank you.
Thank you for that kind comment. I will share that with our children's department. Our librarians build that collection, and they've embraced, well, part of the story is that the publishing world is beginning to be more responsive than it was in the past. So representing more faces, more voices is easier because it's there. If the product isn't in the publishing pipeline, we're limited at doing that. But it's a very rich publishing environment now for diverse voices and viewpoints. So I believe that the librarians that we have on staff now are very sensitive to those issues. We've built one of our key values that you'll see in our mission, vision, and values page is we have a specific library value that's endorsed by the library board of equity. The statement that each person's life and goals deserve respect has been in our values and guiding principles for at least 10 years now. So you know, I try to lead on that, and I believe that our team embraces it as well. So it's good to hear that it's noticed, that you noticed it. That's great. Is there? Yes, yeah.
Anne Marie Johnson. Related to that, on that same page, I was happy to see the privacy and freedom from censorship notice. I know most, if not all public libraries have something like that, but that was the one thing that stuck with me from reading the materials, along with the diversity and inclusion statement. But very
Sure.
delighted to see that.
Well, that really makes me happy that you noticed that. Our first, we've kind of gotten through our first year of action plan and projects within this new strategic plan, these new strategic plan goals. And they've been very inwardly focused because we're doing a lot of work on our organization. And one of those elements is an onboarding process where I meet with each new employee to talk about these high-level values and the high-level goals. And I met with an employee this very morning, and I talked about that privacy and freedom from censorship value, and mentioned to her that it's a little known value of American public libraries. Many people don't understand that in statute and also by our traditions of practice in public libraries in the United States, that we guard the privacy that you have to learn and read with any authority looking over your shoulder. In fact, if a police officer were to come in the door and ask to see what you've checked out or what you've read, by statute, we cannot reveal that without a court order or subpoena. So we have not only the law at our back, but it's also our value. And then freedom from censorship. I'm sure you're all aware that we're in fraught times as far as battles over content in school libraries, and there's a long history of challenges to books in public libraries as well. The Library Board of Oshkosh has adopted the American Library Association's Bill of Rights and Freedom to Read statements that protect and provide for a diversity of representation and materials in our collection services and programs. So we're committed to that, and I'm thrilled that you noticed it and that it's important to you, because often I feel members of the public don't really understand that position. So that's great. This is I love this conversation. Does anyone else have something to share, or I don't know how much time you want to give me. I can talk for hours, but I don't want to do that to you. I shared our plan that includes, I do want to call out our vision statement. Our vision statement is a library in every life. And the background behind that vision statement is the belief that we have something within our menu of collection services and programs that can be of value to every person who lives in the Oshkosh area and its communities. People use the library and benefit from it in different ways. Everybody comes to it from where they are, what they want to learn, or what they want to enjoy. And we are a helping profession, and our goal is to help people pursue their goals and enrich their lives. So that vision, I think, is, at its bedrock, it's a diversity vision. It's saying we want to welcome every person in this community to partake of the services that we have, and we want to support their journey.
We so appreciate you coming, Jeff, like I said. And I know Jeff gave the website before where you can learn more and more about the programming. Jeff, do you want to repeat that website?
Sure, nice and slowly this time. www.oshkoshpubliclibrary, all one word, .org. We're an org, not a com.
Okay. All right, I just figured we'd put one more plug in for that.
I appreciate it.
And I know the committee really appreciates, and I think myself, I wasn't even aware of some of the things that the library does. So I think this is very beneficial to the committee and hopefully any public who's watching this.
Thank you so much. And once again, I thank you for your participation, giving your time and energy to this effort to make the city of Oshkosh and its community a better place. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you, Jeff, for joining us tonight and for all that information. Okay. Welcome, Ashley. Good to see you. So next, we have an update from Councilman Wojciechowski and Michael Ford. So we are ready for that whenever you guys are ready.
I know, Aaron, do you want me to just kind of go into some of the background here?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, cool. Well, first off, thanks for having me and thanks for serving in this role. I know committee work is hard enough when it's a long-standing committee. Certainly that's much more challenging when you're on a new one, so appreciate that. So Michael Ford, I'm on the Oshkosh Common Council, and the reason I'm here is to give you a little bit of background about some of the legislative intent of the metric portion of the DEI stuff in particular. It was myself, Councilwoman Erickson, Dr. Sam Larson at UW Oshkosh that put some of this stuff together, at least this concept together. So I think it's worthwhile to revisit some of the intent given what you're doing later tonight. So broadly, the framework was designed to really weave equity and inclusion into the fabric of government. The idea being if we have measurables, goal setting, and annual reporting as part of the budget process, we're better positioned to actually make substantive progress. So why go this route? We did look at past initiatives that have failed at the municipal level. And these initiatives tend to lose steam if they don't have buy-in from city staff, if they don't have measurables, they don't have a need to show progress. And if it's not reported alongside something that's kind of the regular reporting thing that we do in government. So that's why we tied these metrics to the budget. It's the one piece of legislation that we have to vote on, that we have to pass. It also recognizes our government form. I know City Attorney Lawrenson did a nice job explaining it, but the City Council, we have one employee. It's Mark Roloff. So whenever I get mad, I can direct everything towards Mark and nobody else. But I say this because we have one employee on the council. The boards and commissions are designed to advise council. So in practice, this means we don't really have any control over operations or personnel. That's just not our mandate legally. So where does that leave us? Well, ours is a governance function. So in this particular case, we're able to set a framework, articulate roles for a committee like the DEI committee, and ultimately tell the city manager that we want him to execute this framework. So the way we actually laid it out, to get more specific in the ordinance, is the first thing we did is provide resources to city staff to make sure that they would better understand DEI measures. So that was really the training piece. And the whole intent there was to create buy-in among the individuals that are actually going to be implementing this framework. If they don't buy into it, it's not going to work. We put in the ordinance that the department themselves were tasked with creating those equity measures. And once again, the goal here was to create real buy-in. I fully admit the first iteration of the ordinance that I had worked on had actual list of measures out there. And I was thinking, oh, we'll just give them to city staff. And then when I sat down with Councilwoman Erickson and Dr. Larson, they told me that I'm an idiot. But basically what they were saying is that the problem when you do that, when you attempt to dictate, is that you alienate city staff right off the bat. And past research shows that that's a really bad way to start off an initiative like this. If city staff feels like they're being dictated to, as opposed to being part of a process of generating something like a performance metric, they're less likely to execute it. It's a little more difficult, right? It takes time, as you're all experiencing, for city staff to develop these metrics and share them with you. But the intent was for that to be part of the process. It's meant to be challenging, but it's meant to educate the individuals who are developing these metrics and, again, generate that buy-in. And the next step that we're getting closer to is to send the metrics to the DEI committee for approval. And that's so important because we want, you serve as the bridge really between the community and the Common Council. And we want to make sure that you are satisfied with the goals that are being created by city staff, and making sure that city staff, you, the Common Council, that we're all aligned on what these goals are. Because if we're going to direct the city manager to execute a framework, we all need to be in alignment. And once we have that baseline, again, which is about where we're at now, under ordinance, the DEI is meant to set goals. And that's not designed to be overly complicated, but it's supposed to tell the council, so us, and through us, the city manager, what you all hope to see in terms of progress. And having those actual goals set allows us to evaluate, what's working and what's not working, and really call attention to those successes and failures so that we can adjust. I can say personally, my day job is I'm a professor of public administration, and it can be tempting to want to dig into the operations side. It can be frustrating under this form of government sometimes when you can't. But ultimately, the governance function is our mandate, and the intent of the ordinance was really to create a path for lasting progress on the issue. And I know you're doing a lot more than these metrics, but given that there is a very specific role you have under the ordinance regarding performance metrics, I thought it would be useful to go through some of the legislative history there, and at least what we were thinking at the time. I don't know if you have anything to add, Councilman Wojciechowski.
Not much more than that, other than, part of the purpose of having Councilman Ford here and me to speak on it was to help alleviate some of the confusion we had from past meetings. We had been in charge of putting together the goals, and then all of a sudden these metrics were thrown at us, and it was like, okay, well, are we supposed to come up with the metrics? Or are we just supposed to approve them, et cetera? So I think the purpose in this was trying to clear it up, and set our focus on getting those goals out there, which I believe should be our top priority, and then approving those metrics that the departments give to us. Because at the end of the day, I believe that the departments do know themselves best, and we're simply here to help advise them as DEI, I don't want to say experts, but people who have an interest in DEI and some experience in that. So, but I think Councilman Ford put it great.
Thank you for that. I don't know if City Manager Roloff, if there's something you want to add that I screwed up there, I missed that's in the ordinance.
No, I don't think so. I think the whole idea is to we're going to have a discussion about goals or metrics in a few minutes, and certainly getting the goals established is something also the committee's working on, and we want to help them work on that because I think there's been comments about that. And again, if you look at the ordinance, I think the goals were intended to precede the metrics. Now the metrics are kind of getting a little ahead, so we'll work with the committee to make sure that works as best as possible.
No, thanks, Mark. And I mean, and I'll reiterate again too that maybe this is too much a public admin professor in me, but like that separation from the operations and the governance side is so important. I mean, we have a city manager here to give him guidance on how to execute this. But a lot of these measures are going to be outward facing, and they're going to be outward facing by design, because we know this isn't just an organizational issue, or this is a community issue we're trying to make progress on. Well, thank you. That's all I had. I really appreciate the taking the time.
Right. Do any committee members have questions for council members? I don't know if Mike's going to stay on. I assume Aaron will, but if anyone has any questions, now's a great time.
I have a question. I guess, given what I believe we were asked to approve some months ago now, about 2 months back, it seems, I don't have them in front of me, the selection of some metrics that you're going to be looking at. Just as a general opinion, I guess, do you feel that they were well balanced in meeting the needs of diversity, equity, and inclusion? Because they are all very distinct concepts, distinct approaches and measures perhaps. And personally, when I recall, and again, I honestly don't have them in front of me, I just found that it wasn't quite maybe as balanced as I would hope to have seen. And I understood they're supposed to be interdepartmentally applicable and driven from some of what is, but I would say okay, I don't know that they were quite well balanced. So are we being asked to approve something in that regard that doesn't feel quite right? I'm not sure where we're supposed to go with the additional background information. I appreciate it. But I'm just trying to understand how to inform where we're going forward. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I know. I mean, my understanding is just, I mean, the way it's written in the ordinance and the way it was drafted, it's for approval or not approval. So you are under no obligation, obviously, to approve anything. But right, so that's going to be the advice that you send to council based on that. So I mean, right, I don't want to get, I think that's your guys' role as the DEI committee to make those decisions and advise us on that. I don't want to get into the weeds because that's what your mandate is, right? That's why you exist.
I think just to piggyback off that, I think what it's saying is the metrics are presented to DEI committee from departments. If the committee decides that they are not comfortable or they don't like those metrics, they can choose not to approve them, but it would still go to the council for our ultimate decision, and we would take into account why DEI didn't support it, et cetera, all that. And then maybe that's incorrect, but that's my understanding, Councilman Ford.
That's certainly the way I viewed it. And City Manager Roloff, correct me if I'm wrong, but I guess I saw that kind of like when the Plan Commission votes something down, it still comes to us. It just comes to us with a recommendation that's not approved.
Right, that any of the boards that are advisory, they pass on their recommendations to council, and council acts accordingly. But I would hope that we could work on those to try to make them as balanced. I'm anxious to talk to Ashley about that. But I think the committee has to feel comfortable with what they're recommending. I certainly don't want them to consider themselves a rubber stamp. And I think there's work yet to be done on the measures, and I think they can evolve. I really think that as the committee develops their goals, the goals will drive new and different measures. They may reaffirm some of the ones that already exist that get initially approved by the council and the committee, but eventually they're going to get tweaked, and I think that's well within the realm of this committee's role. And we're delving into the next topic, and I saw several of the suggestions. Mouche's in particular were very goal oriented. We can create measures from those goals. There were some great goals in there, but the committee has to commit. It has to say, yes, those are goals that we want to work on, and from that, I think we can generate measures. Ashley's were more specific measures that were at least very specific, and they're the makings of what we could do. We're only has to do 5 to 7 per department. But several of those I saw were similar to measures that were in the staff report, or a twist on them. And that's, we can take a look at those and see how that works as well.
Any other questions? I just want to make sure everyone has an opportunity, as again, if the council members are finished sharing information with us.
Yeah, I'll just say thank you again for your work. I know it's difficult, and I think it's meant to be difficult. Every municipality that takes this seriously is going through the same thing. So appreciate it, and appreciate you having me. And I am going to take off because my son's standing outside his school after wrestling practice, thinking he's been ditched.
Thank you, Michael, for joining us tonight and for that information.
Thank you.
We appreciate your service as well.
Thank
you. So moving on, next we've got the review and approval of the draft departmental DEI performance measure. So let's open that up for discussion. So did everyone have a chance to review what was submitted, the compilation of submissions? I believe it was Ashley, Mouche, and myself. Did anyone want to add any to those suggestions?
I'm taking the awkward silence that nobody wants to add, but I wonder if anyone wants to discuss all of the many ideas that you all put forward.
Well, the only thing I would throw out there is, again, it was good to have some clarification, you know, where this approach is going, because it has been sort of one step, two step, who's taking the lead sort of a process along the way. So I think this was a good revisit. And this, again, my perspective. But it was my understanding that, you know, our deadline to get these items to the city was for you all to perhaps sift through them to see what you thought might be useful, just kind of bucket it, what would be reasonable, what wouldn't be, what do you think would be useful, and, you know, what might not be, you know, what is totally off the question maybe, but that's not where you went. But, you know, it was to sort of take these and break them apart and sort of give us something to discuss versus, you know, sort of, I mean, we can go through this whole list, but, you know, Mark, if you alluded to, you saw some alignment there, well, then let's talk about where some of the alignment is. Where do we think there isn't? And honestly, I would have liked to have seen the ones for the city. I guess I'll have to go back to my notes because, again, honestly, I don't have those in front of me. But it might be helpful.
There's a report that Mr. Fitzpatrick had forwarded you that was dated November 26th. That's that. Some of the stuff that Angie had was actually, you must have been looking at some of the same information. So there were 3 different sets of input from the committee of 9. Yours was, you know, had specific measures, and there were a lot. And
Well,
it's sorting them down to 5 to 7 because the direction is 5 to 7 per. There's a lot of in there. I can tell you I was unable to, you know, get these back to departments because we had extended the deadline a little while for the committee to provide more. But
4
certainly
days.
some of the ones that you had in there, a lot of it is HR. There were several pages of that. We can certainly glean from those, a lot of them. There are other ones that are more, I would say, workload or just a volume measure. Some of those I think we can do. Others might be a little more challenging. And then others are sort of a pass fail, which I don't know if those don't necessarily lend themselves to being worthwhile measures because they're kind of one and dones. And that's yours. If you take a look at Mouche's, and that's a single page, and I mean, we can put these on the screen if that would help everybody.
No, that's
like
not what
that?
I'm saying. I have that. No, I guess was just trying to understand. So, you know, I could find if what I submitted isn't useful, so be it. Like what do you find useful? What do you find useful from where? Because like, let's get to
Oh, okay, sure.
the process is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like you're the one who identified some things that you
Well,
thought
for
weren't alignment versus
again,
others. Yeah.
with respect to yours, Ashley, it's really more about how do we boil them down to 5 to 7 per department because
Yeah.
there's a lot of
Discuss.
they're very similar from my standpoint. You had head count and budget; those were very similar to some of the ones that Mr. Fitzpatrick had in his. I didn't see anything necessarily. I mean, we may not have a lot of valuable data to get out of this. In fact, I mean, one of the things, Ashley, is we're not going to have a lot of good outcomes as we get started. For example, I'm just going to try to just
Good.
glean one just to kind of help. percentage of diverse candidates in total pool. Right now, our percentage is pretty low. I mean, I don't want to try to sugarcoat it. And the percent receiving interviews is probably very low as well, because we have so few in the first place. So some of that points out a recruiting issue more than anything. If that's, I mean, but we can do that, but we're not going to have a lot of progress in that initially. But they're valid measures. They're absolutely valid measures. Let's see. So in workforce representation is kind of the same, although there were some that were good in there that we could give you input on, or give you measurable output. But again, the numbers are low. So I guess some of it would be, is that something you're interested in doing, knowing that we're going to start on a very low level, and then just we work from there to improve, which I think is part of the goal of the committee, is to help identify areas where we can improve.
Well, I guess my only response, and it'll be my final one to this, and I'll listen to others because I'd love to hear it, is there's a broad array of potential things to choose from, just like we have other things, the global diversity, index, and things of that nature. But I guess I'm still at the point, like, I don't know where y'all are coming from. I don't know where you're starting from. I don't know, quite honestly, what's a reasonable place to meet you at, because we really haven't seen anything. And because it is a bit of an internal process, which therefore it's opaque to us. So to me, it still feels just a little awkward in how to even, like, where are we supposed to start? Because if you're telling us that the measures that were put forth are really reasonable and represent a starting place where you're at, then okay, I'll trust that. And if that's the thing and it's as far as we can go, okay, so be it. Then I guess I just take that for what it is. Maybe we can improve on some things here initially, fine, but it's just, I would say, a little disappointing. So I do
Yes.
hope we can, go ahead.
I guess I'm confused. I said yes.
Said yes to what?
Yes, I think your goals are, the metrics you had are reasonable.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. But you're asking us where do you, if we want to use some of this, like where you're going to, because you have 5 to 7 slots to fill is what I'm understanding, essentially.
Yeah.
So
if
and
you
you're
have
going
a
to start
preference for one, you gave us like 3 pages of things, probably about 30 to 40. Would you, I mean, if you want to give us some input on ones that you prefer more than others, I certainly want to listen to that and be able to,
well, okay,
be
I hear you,
responsive
Mark.
to you.
Okay, no, I hear you. So I guess what I'm just trying to understand is, like, okay, what we're presented is I'm supposed to intuit then that the city's sort of at this level. Like what was presented to us, or it was suggested to us as a good starting place, and it's a good, reasonable point. It meets something that could be attainable. It's going to give you something useful internally to work with, a baseline essentially that everyone agreed upon internally would be useful. And like, but that's where you're coming from. So, okay, I will have to revisit this whole thing, honestly, in my mind, with that lens and that understanding in mind, because I was kind of spitballing here, shooting in the dark, so to speak, trying to understand what level and where should we even try to engage, which is why I'm relying on the experts who are going through the work inside to kind of say, yeah, this one's kind of useful, this one's not, from my perspective, because that would help me sort of narrow my thinking down to where to meet you at. But I'm learning a lot here. I'll stop. I think this is helpful. I just would have to revisit it to your point. Like if there are some things I'd want to suggest, I will revisit this in my own mind a bit, and it's not immutable. So thank you.
No, I think things you had, for example, in the headcount and budget area, I thought were good. There's some things that we may not have good results initially. The other section you had was workforce representation, which I think are very similar to what were in Mr. Fitzpatrick's November 26 memo.
Or
So-
citywide, this inclusive policies for the city, like other things of that nature, things, there's other ways of measuring stuff that we are being asked to have input and influence on as well. But I'm realizing this is truly internal. This is
But with
stuff.
respect to that one, like an inclusive policy, that's not a measure. That's a goal, and it's a worthwhile goal. But how do I measure it? We either, we should develop it, and then there may be measures that come out of that out of that. But if developing a policy is not a metric, it's a worthwhile goal. So
It
I just don't.
was just a category with a whole bunch of specific things underneath
Yeah.
it. So I was
Well, that's
pointing
kind
out
of,
what I shared with you, and that's okay. I've said I would be done, so
yeah.
I'll let to know others. Thank you.
And I apologize. I just want to add a little color from my standpoint that I figured you as a committee would want to talk about all the recommendations you all had and see, you know, are you all in the same space? Are you kind of thinking, or did you see any that you liked more? And then Mark really needs to take those back to his staff members as well. Obviously, as Mr. Ford mentioned, we definitely need to have buy-in from the staff on what their measurements are. So I apologize if I set this up in a poor manner, but I thought all of you would want to, I mean, there's many pages of thoughts, and thought that you'd want to have some discussion about that.
I don't think you set this up poorly, Michelle. I think it's fostering discussion. It's just maybe not the discussion you're hoping to have or we're anticipating having.
Right. Well, again, I do want to apologize if I set any expectations up inappropriately for the committee, and definitely want to, you know, I guess, hear all of the other members as well. We appreciate so much Mouche, Ashley, and Angie submitting theirs. But I also figured some of the other members might at least have some thoughts on all of the things that you guys submitted. And so now nobody's going to say a thing just to make it more comfortable. So.
I'll say something. Mark, I'm wondering, so, you know, like there's a lot of good ideas between what John and staff and you have created, and then between, you know, the document that we've created as far as ideas. I'm wondering if there's a possibility that in this plan or maybe goals that we can stack them, or maybe have like even like a long-term plan, so that we can, instead of just having these metrics for this year, or just even having a defined timeline, if maybe then we could stack some of these goals and there's a little bit more continuity. And, you know, like what I'm hearing is we're all very aspirational, and we all want to see some really big progress, is how I'm kind of interpreting this discussion. And maybe it's just a matter of, okay, these are the 5-7 goals that we just choose and we run with it. But but because there are so many suggestions, I wonder then if we were to have like a longer term, like not just like, oh, we just created this to check this off for the next year, but maybe what is the city's strategic plan for the next 3, 5, 10 years in terms of DEI? And then maybe some of the metrics that were suggested feel more like honored. I don't know. I know I'm
Yeah.
not really.
Yeah, but you got me thinking about something. You know, the first one I got, the first person who submitted anything was Mouche. So his was the first I was able to kind of look at. And if I could just share that page, because I think we can go somewhere with this. And you know, it's not exactly what I think was envisioned, but I don't think that's necessarily bad. Michelle, can you give me any ability to share my screen, or do I just start sharing and don't worry about it? Because I want to make sure everybody has Mouche's.
You can share, Mark.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think I got the right screen. There we go. Okay, so this is the stuff that Mouche gave. Virtually everything that Mouche provided us was more goal oriented, and nothing in there was necessarily concerning to me. And so as you go through them, and I'm just going to jump to number 5 because it's just an easy one to kind of respond to. City boards and commissions, applicants, appointments, and membership increasingly matches community demographics. We could, you can create a measure from that. That's not a measure in and of itself. I've been doing performance measurement for a very long time, and goals are super important. To your point, Angie, the goals are super important to be to have so that we can create measures from there. Maybe, and I'm just throwing out as an idea, if you want to identify 5 to 7 goals that from amongst all these things that we can work on, then we can create measures from them. For example, one that would not be a really good measure, I mean, you could do a measure. Number 1, city marketing materials depict people from different racial, ethnic backgrounds. That's a wonderful goal, and I think that's something we should pursue. In fact, independent of that, I know Michelle's been working on that. We don't have a lot of marketing materials, but I think we've become aware that we need to do more of this. I received a critique several years ago during State of the City that we needed to depict more diverse people. We do a video version of, if you've gone to State of the City, you've seen it. And it wasn't really diverse. And it was very beneficial for somebody to point it out to me. But once we start working on that, it's a goal. You can see that number 1's a goal, but are there measures? Well, I don't know if we're going to analyze every single photograph and say, well, we have a percentage of people, but I think there's ways to demonstrate percentage of, we'd have to say we've got, let's say, 10 marketing materials we put out. Of those 10, how many depict people from different backgrounds? So we can at least recognize that we're looking at that and thinking about that and achieving it when we do it. So we can create measures from that, but I hope you can see that a lot of these are more goals. But if you wanted to give us 5 to 7 goals, then I think we could take from that, okay, let's get a measure. Let's get some measures from each of those goals, and maybe we can extract, maybe you give me more than 5 to 7 goals. Maybe you give me like 10 to 15, which Mouche happens to have 13, but we can extract performance measures from these goals and then bring those back. And I would say that some of them, for example, a lot of the stuff that Ashley provided, you could take a look at number 6 and say, okay, that's a goal that Mouche was presenting to us, a good goal, and what measures can be done to do that. They really, with the stuff that Ashley provided, is more in keeping with, those are measures consistent with goal number 6, for example. And if you don't have it in front of you, it says, or it's too small for your screen, the percentage of staff who identify as people of color and of different genders increasingly matches community demographics. That's a measurable, that is a measurable, or something we can create measures from. And that's really good. So I don't know, I'm just tossing that out for discussion, because we could sit and go over individual measures, a long time, but I don't necessarily sense that the silence is in agreement or disagreement. It's just that maybe there's more you want to see. So what do you think of that idea? And I'll stop sharing my screen as soon as I figure out how to do it. Okay, there we go.
This is Beth again, and I guess I'm going to reiterate what I shared a couple months ago, is that, I think we're all, trying to, as Ashley said, kind of catch up with, how this came to be and, understand it all. Would have preferred to maybe have seen it earlier on. Certainly have things that, and I agree with the input that was provided, but that could be different about it. But again, as we said 2 months ago, it's a fluid plan. So, if the employees came up with this because it's something that they're going to buy into and the city feels like it's a good starting point, I think that we need to keep in mind the fluidity of it rather than get so caught up in exactly what it is today versus what it's going to be 5 years from now.
Yeah, I think with that, this is Sophia speaking. I think with that overall, a lot of the goals listed were good. I think a lot of them are very ambitious, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I do like the idea of narrowing it down to 5 to 7 goals for right now so that we have something direct that we're looking at. Because everyone had a lot of great ideas. I think narrowing it down and kind of putting them all together to have a short 5 to 7 list of goals would be great.
This is Aaron. I just wanted to jump in, just kind of as the reminding as the council perspective. I know we had new people. We've had a lot of changeover too, so it feels like I keep reminding people, but it's only because we have new people every now and then. But I guess where I struggle with talking about the metrics is that there's no goals to go off of it yet. And that's like the number one thing. It says within 1 year of creation, report to the city manager and common council on goals of the committee. That's like the number one thing they're supposed to do. And when I look at a lot of these metrics, they're great. And I'm trying to think, okay, what goal would that go with? When you said the percentage of staff who identifies people of color, that could be like a metric of an overall goal. Maybe that goal is increasing diversity in employment for the city of Oshkosh. I think we can look at all these metrics, but it's hard for me to decide which ones are worthy, which ones are good if we have no goals to go off of. And that's where I'm struggling. There are no goals that the committee has created yet to say, okay, here are the metrics for those goals. So I really just think that the goals need to be established first before the metrics.
I agree with that, and I think that would be definitely a reasonable thing to do, is to set goals as a committee on what we really want to see happen over the next year.
Let's jump in. And really the purpose of that is because like a year ago from now, or a year ago from today, or a year later from today, I should say, we might not be on this committee. So really the goals reflect the people on the committee at the time and what they would like to get done on their time in the committee. And maybe 2 years from now, new committee members will have different goals that they want to achieve, based on their experiences or what they want to get done or the state of the city. So I think it's so important that we as a collective group, and I say we, I mean more so you as a committee, decide what we want to accomplish as a committee before, we move on from this committee, so on, et cetera.
And I think fits well into the plan that they want to create. And I know one thing they did agree to last month was outreach. And that's definitely something that I think is important for us to continue. But yeah, I think the goals would be very helpful. I think it would help focus the committee on what they want to accomplish. And I think everybody would like to see goals based on all the members that I talked to about this. So what I think I'm hearing is that we're probably not ready to go forward on the metrics. Does anyone disagree with that? Okay, I take no comments as agreement.
What do you
So
think
I
about, I think Aaron and I are kind of talking similar things. What do you think about identifying some goals that you feel are worthwhile pursuits? And then we can develop measures based on all the input we've got and then bring it back for you to take a look at that.
I think that sounds great.
I would also just throw in, if you're all in agreement, you like Mouché's goals and the things he's put forth, or maybe something Angie's put forth, why don't you let us know which is there too? I mean, like, your input is also very important for us because quite honestly, we were reminded earlier, we are an advisory committee. I'm assuming that whatever goals we put forth are to align with the overall charge of the committee, doing education and outreach, putting forth a plan for the city and responding to, a lot of different aspects of what you're doing is what runs our way. Sounds great to me. If that's what you want, we can go forward and put forth goals. Sounds good to me. I don't know what others. And it sounds like you like what Mouche put forth. So, I mean, we got all kinds of starting places.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can, if, what I would suggest then, because, you know, Mouche has pride of ownership of, or authorship of this, you know, if there's anything else, because, you know, there are some things in there that are going to be some challenges, data collection wise, others, like the last one is a goal. I don't think is a measure if you come from that, because, I'm sorry, number 12, the city maintains membership and participates in GARE. You know, that's certainly a goal, and that's our intent anyway. In fact, I think that may have even been written in that we may have that membership in GARE. So that wouldn't necessarily create any goals, wouldn't create any measures, but we'll look through all of those and identify measures that we can do. Would you like me to just take a stab at looking at Mouche's list and sort of like number one, city marketing materials, and then here are some measures that we can go with, and just kind of see where you are with that? I got to make sure every department's covered, because part of my direction from council was to also make sure I have some for every department. It's 5 to 7 per department. So that's why I upped the number of goals, because I got to make sure it covers things. You know, you heard a great presentation from Jeff tonight. Jeff can probably take some of the comments that you and feedback you gave him tonight. He can probably say, well, based on what I heard, here are some measures I think would be very applicable. I don't think we're going to get every department unless we just use the head counts as Ashley put them on his first page. Those are relatively easy because we can do those for every department, and that might be the way we fill the gaps on some of them. But we can do that. Any response?
Mark, you mentioned we keep saying goals and metrics, and I think that's where some of it gets confusing, because from my understanding of the ordinance, the goals aren't necessarily the goals don't necessarily have to be departmental. You know, the goals are strictly the committee's choice, whereas the metrics are more on the internal side.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah,
So,
you're absolutely right.
The goals of the DEI committee could be, you know, criminal justice reform. Like you could say, we want to take a stab at that. And that's a goal. That doesn't mean it's going to get accomplished, but that's one of their goals. One of them might be increased diversity in city employment, things like that. And then, so and we had this discussion before, but it's just trying to separate the two.
So obviously, the first one you mentioned is almost exclusively on police. The second one could be applicable. We could divide that into every department. So, you know, it depends on the goal. That's why at first I said 5 to 7, but I was thinking, I was like, well, no, that's not going to make sense because of the point you just made. Not every goal is going to be applicable to every department. It may be applicable to one, it may be applicable to just a few. And there's other things we can do, that we can do to do better at that. Some departments don't have any marketing materials. So number one wouldn't necessarily apply to them, but the ones who do marketing materials like parks, senior center, police, fire, and then HR, those are a lot easier that we can do those. Then I think I could create from that, okay, how do I manage making that apply to multiple departments? Number 4, voter information in multiple language. That's a single department, but it's a good goal. It just only applies to a single department. In this case, it'd be administration/city clerk. So does that make sense? But I could take each of those goals, and if there are any other goals that the committee wants to put out there, we could add those and just say, okay, what more goals can we do? And then we can whittle it down to 5 or 7 per department. But from that exercise, I think we can. Thumbs up, thumbs down. I'm okay.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, I know Ashley's trying not to dominate the conversation because he's given a lot of good input on it. But I certainly value any thoughts you can have. But the goals, I think, do help generate what, to Aaron's point, the goals are going to generate a lot of discussion about potential measures.
I like the approach. I like the idea. If it's a way to continue working in this front, I think it's quite meaningful, and I hope collectively we can, kind of coalesce around developing 5 to 7 goals that we're all happy with, and feel good about. And I like the fact that then you can then parse that up, and determine where it's most applicable. And to your point, Aaron, then it does allow for some flexibility and natural sort of growth and actual representation of the interests that exist within this committee, which I think I'm most eager to see. I would really truly want to see, everyone finding a path to come, share some ideas and thoughts, because I know public speaking and talking in this format is not really always the most conducive for everyone, and it's really not, I'm just going to put that out there. So
Ashley, you may have missed that part of the meeting. This is the last virtual meeting. We return. We're going live next month. And we get to actually meet everybody. Excuse me.
And I would just say real quick, just to echo off Ashley, that's the reason why you're all on this committee. You are on this committee because you care about DEI things. And at least what my goal is to make sure that, you're having meaningful impact on this committee. You're not just sitting here, because you have to be. You're on here because you want to make a change. And I want those goals that you have to be reflected, and I think that's where your buy-in is. So like Ashley, you got on this committee. If there's something specific you want to address, I think that's where the goals come in. And that's where we discuss it as a committee, because I want those things to be accomplished. And it is hard because we are an advisory committee, but I think there's power in that still. And that's where these goals come in. It kind of flexes the power a little bit, saying, yeah, we're advisory, but this is what we have as the goal and what we want to get done.
Okay, so what I think I'm hearing is we definitely want to have some time to go through potential goals in our next meeting. And if people want to submit additional ideas, like Aaron said, if you have something that you are passionate about, we definitely want to get those goals in. It might be best if everybody doesn't submit 40 goals, because when we try to whittle them down, if everybody has 40, it will take a long time for us to agree on them. But if you have a few that you're passionate about, I would love it if you could send those to me so that we can look at those goals. Obviously, Mouche puts them together. We want everybody's input on what they think they want to accomplish on this committee and be able to discuss those at the next meeting. Does that sound reasonable? I'm getting a couple head nods, so I'm going to take that.
Yeah, I'll go one step further. I think maybe what I could do to assist in the process is we can take a look at what Mouche and Ashley and Angie have already done and identify some metrics that we might be able to suggest to you. Might as well prime the pump a little bit to get the ball rolling on it. And but I like the exercise that Michelle suggested, because the work you're going to be doing with our consultant, I'm losing his name right now. Alonzo, yeah. With the work we're doing with Alonzo Kelly, this might help you kind of gel some of the goals that you think we ought to be achieving anyway. Then we can back into the measures again as well. So would you like me to take a crack at measures that would come from some of Mouche and Ashley and Angie's goals and give you something to look at? I think, Ashley, with a lot of your stuff, I think I might say, how can we take those and move them into the categories that Mouche identified? Does that sound reasonable to you?
Well, I think it would be wonderful from my perspective. I think that was my understanding of what was going to happen to some extent, but maybe not exactly like this. So I like that. I appreciate it. I was already starting to do that as we were talking, so that would be helpful.
Okay. All right.
Sounds great.
Thanks for the feedback.
Okay. So with that, I don't know, I feel like we kind of spilled over into the plan development update. So our plan then is to set aside time at our next meeting to see this kind of distilled version of goals and spend some time, like have a work session of discussion and narrowing it down to 5 to 7 goals, correct?
Or more if that's what you guys are passionate about. Like Mark said, obviously, if they can only apply to one department, he may need a few more.
Sure. So can we mark that that agenda item? Is there anything else we need to discuss then as far as the plan development update?
Is Alonzo coming to that one?
I don't think Alonzo's coming today.
No, to then in the next meeting, if that's going to be the discussion.
Yeah, I will definitely talk to Alonzo, bring him up to speed, and ask him if he can attend our next meeting.
Okay, I'm just thinking more of a chicken egg question for the committee. Do you want to do the goal discussion with Alonzo first, or you want to do the metrics discussion? I can see arguments either way, so I guess I toss it out. I just raised the question. I'm so going to enjoy when people are together. This is so hard.
You know, honestly, selfishly, if we're being asked to develop goals, I'd like to continue talking about goals. And then that would be a natural step for me to talk with Alonzo next, if that's, that's what we're talking here.
And so put it right, and then put the metrics right after the discussion of goals. I'm kind of the same way though. I was just like, it's kind of a horse apiece, but okay, Michelle and Fitz and I can discuss that as well, and maybe circle back with you as chair, Ashley.
I have a feeling the conversations will end up overlapping a little, but that's just my feeling on it. So, all right.
Yeah. Okay.
From plan development update, I wanted to just kind of follow up with you. Some of the conversation we had about outreach was potentially putting together a Facebook page where we can share information about things that are going on in the area. And I have been in conversations with media about doing just that. Myself or members of the staff would be the administrator of that, but then the team can submit things that they want to have us share on the Facebook page, so that we can get communications out there, have an actual DEI webpage from the city of Oshkosh. I mean, not webpage, I'm sorry, Facebook page, so that we can share things. I did talk to them if we can turn off comments, because unfortunately, whenever you have social media, there will be people who make inappropriate comments. And according to media, we can't. So it'll definitely be something that we have to, i.e. staff, very closely monitor to make sure that people aren't saying things that are inappropriate. So that's, I'm hoping it'll be very positive. Hope for the best, plan for the worst is always my philosophy on these things. So I can definitely move forward with getting that together, hopefully before our next meeting, so we can start sharing things. What does the committee think about that?
That's great. Thank you, Michelle, for looking into that. I know that's been part of our discussions for the last couple months, and thank you for taking the lead on that. And I think, Facebook will be a great medium for our group and for communicating and engaging with the community. I felt a little prickly when you said, about watching for comments. just because I mean, I get that there are trolls out there, but as far as like censoring some of those comments, like if we're really trying to have an open forum, I feel a little hesitant to have some gatekeeper, you know, saying like this comment can be on display, this comment can't. Um, I don't know how the rest of the committee feels if about censoring that.
I wouldn't say it's so much censorship, but if there are vulgarities and racial slurs, that's definitely something that we need to make sure does not stay on our platform.
Yeah, we have a social media policy
Yeah.
that addresses that issue, that does that very balancing act, which is tough. But one of the things we use as one of our guideposts is our civility pledge. So if it violates that, if there can be diverse opinions, disagreeing opinions, but if it lowers itself to something that is not in keeping with the civility pledge, that's when we start looking at it.
Right. And I will work with our Oshkosh Media Department, as they are the experts, to make sure that, like you said, Angie, it's not that we want to censor, but we also want it to not be offensive in a vulgar manner.
Absolutely.
This is
Thanks
Sophia
for that.
speaking. Sorry, but I do think generally just turning off comments is probably the best bet, since then, you know, it's not saying who can say what, it's just us posting about, you know, DEI topics, and then, you know, there's not really a political divide on who can and can't comment. It's just, this is what we're saying, and people don't really get to make their comments back. They can come to the meeting if they'd like to discuss.
Well, and Sophia, I actually asked our Oshkosh Media Department about that, and they said that that Facebook is not a platform that allows me to turn off comments.
No, but one of the things we can do, and thank you for bringing it up, Sophia, it's a good discussion on how to direct traffic and how to direct people, because there will be those that are legitimately wanting to reach out and direct us, and you can have an auto message to deliver, to kind of give them a specific place to drop comments and legitimately email things. And then, you know, so we can help direct traffic and attention to things and activities, and then others, maybe a polite, you know, I don't know, some other response, but there are some things, and your folks will know that.
Yep. Yeah, I'll be working with Oshkosh Media on the specifics. Again, they have the overall strategy for our Oshkosh, City of Oshkosh Facebook social media pages. So we'll make sure that we find a productive way to get information out to people and hopefully maintain a great forum for the community. Any other comments about, you know, again, we kind of decided outreach was one of our important plan, I guess, goals. I don't know if I'm supposed to say goals or not at this point. Is there any other things that have happened with outreach that anyone wants to comment on? I know Agnes had reached out to an organization. I'll let her share a little bit more about that at the next meeting. She wasn't able to be here tonight. Right.
Thank you, Michelle, for that update. And then we're at the portion of our meeting where we share any activities and events in the area. And I think Facebook will be great for that, especially sharing events and different forums and whatnot. Does anyone have any to share with the committee?
I will apologize again for being late to this meeting, which I haven't apologized for, but I am, and I missed the last one. Work has been kind of crazy, so I'm feeling a little missed out on perhaps some of this intent, but I know I had asked for it to be on here just as general updates. So this is where I'm going with it. I was over at the, I think it was over at Dr. Ford's place. He runs this center over at the university, and I don't remember what it's called and all these things. I'm not good at plugging anything, but long and short of it, it was
The
on
Whitburn Center.
Thank
Is that
you.
what you meant?
Correct, sir.
Whitburn?
It was on the opioid, Wisconsin's response to the opioid epidemic, right? And there's just tons of things going on. Long and short of it, I had to leave early, unfortunately, but one of the things that stood out to me, and it goes back to some other discussions we had, and I like related to CARES Act money or American Rescue Plan money. And like, I know a lot of this stuff gets put out there, but it came down to this national epidemic. And and even under COVID, finding some of the city's responses, it was going back to the county public health. And this could be just, I'll show my ignorance, which is not an issue, is that I'm not really sure how the city coordinates or works with the county on any matter of public health, quite honestly, other than maybe you putting some money over there. I don't really know. But what I'm hearing is we don't have, it was a very informative uh, uh, public forum. There's going to be more things coming out. But I would just say this is one of those areas, especially if we start looking at the impacts, different populations, different economic specters. This hits everybody. This is not something that Oshkosh is immune to. I would just, and I don't know really enough perhaps about why the city doesn't have its own kind of public health activity. Like, and maybe we do, and again, I'm missing it, but like, what is this that, because, there's monies that come in different streams, and this is a need for capacity at all levels. And I just continually wonder with this relationship that I'm sort of seeing, and it came up under COVID, where we rely so much on the county to manage this. It's a county, many municipalities and cities here. Oshkosh is a very large city and municipality. So it just triggered a lot of thought, and I didn't have time, and I wasn't able to engage. But I'm sharing it now, and that was sort of my takeaway, is that this is a national epidemic. It hits every community and every household. It impacts our economics, and I just wonder what we can do about, elevating and redirecting. And Jeff, and I didn't want to talk to him because I came in late, but I'll do it some more offline. Like, how is that being a hub, just like law enforcement and others, to get people to critical care? They need it in the moment, because the library sees people coming in all states of being, for better or for worse. And there are people that at times there's crisis, and there's, things are called emergency responders in all of our cities. How do we coordinate to direct people and put it in the hands of staff that might be frontline engagement of somebody? You walk in a parking lot, you got somebody out there. What we can do to really enhance the distribution of Narcan? What can we do to, like, I want to put up Narcan dispensing machines. It needs to be everywhere. And unfortunately, our youngsters need to understand it. Every family, it's like, I don't need to be an alarmist, but it's something that really triggered a lot. I mean, it's something that I'll have some goals,
Yeah.
but
Well,
I just, it was a highlight. So good.
First, a history lesson.
Thank
The
you.
city of Oshkosh and Neenah had its own health department until about 10 years ago. And we worked together to consolidate our health departments to have a coordinated effort on the public health side. We are actively involved in that initiative you're talking about, Ashley. And wherever the relevant department is, primarily police and fire. You may have missed over the weekend because of all the Russia Ukraine issue going on. We actually made an announcement on Friday that our fire department was distributing Narcan to people who they are concerned about are at risk for overdose. So we're actively working on that. So I appreciate you bringing it up. Was Jennifer Skolaski part of that presentation?
Yeah, and I was going to ask Jennifer if the OD review team might want to come and talk, because they see the impacts perhaps more directly when it comes to some of the racial ethnic disparities, or to the extent that that does apply in our region.
We're working very closely with Jennifer on that initiative, because we agree that it's a public health issue, but it's not just public health's problem, and we need to be part of that solution. So I got the little commercial out for the Narcan. So you may not have seen it, but yeah, we've been really pushing that the last week and a half, maybe. Yeah, something like that. But yeah, it just got some media play over the weekend.
Just to butt in a little bit, that is definitely a topic or an issue that I'm definitely very passionate about. So I think enhancing resources about that is super cool. I did not know that the fire department was doing that, so that's awesome.
Looks like Anne Marie has raised her hand.
I put this in chat. I saw from the newspaper, Fox Valley 365 is hosting something called What is DEI exactly? A panel discussion Wednesday at noon. So we all probably don't need to go to it, but we might encourage others to. And it includes the Associate Vice Chancellor of Academic Support for Inclusive Excellence from UW Oshkosh, a DEI career coach at Northeast Wisconsin Tech College, an equity mentor from Menasha High School, and Green Bay's diversity coordinator. So even though I don't think I need the topic, I'm going to go because the people who are talking sound like great people to know, and I'm going to see if I can get some people I know to go to it also. But I thought that was something really interesting that's going on. And this, I've never heard, 365 seems to be, there's a Madison and Milwaukee and others, but everything I've seen at their site so far seems to be diversity related articles. It's like a new media thing. So I'm going to be checking out their website some more for other articles and things of interest to read too.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That's good info.
Thank you. Any other activities or events people want to share? All right. Well, when we have our Facebook page up, we'll have a visual or all the stuff in a central place. So that's exciting. Okay, any other future agenda items to discuss right now? And as always, you can submit those to Michelle, Ashley, or myself. Otherwise, we can go ahead and...
I know it's not on the agenda, so I guess I'm maybe suggesting we talk about next time. I think some of the terms are up next month or April. Is that correct?
Terms typically expire in April.
Yeah, end of
I think,
April.
so I guess just to talk about what the plan is, seeing that we don't have any substitutes right now, and I think some terms are up. Like, what is the recruitment plan?
Well, I can tell you that we are always recruiting, but I will approach each of you whose term is expiring to see if you would be interested in being reappointed, and then I will let the mayor know.
Okay.
That's pretty standard. The staff liaison, Michelle, in this case, reaches out and then provides that feedback to the mayor, and then the mayor will make reappointments right after the beginning of the new council year. This is not a mayoral election year, so it's not a new mayor. It's going to be Mayor Palmieri still making the appointments, and so she may very well reach out to you as well, just to let us know. But please answer the call when Michelle calls. We certainly value your input and appreciate it. And getting good people on boards and commissions is a challenge, especially now. The last 2 years have been the most challenging times to recruit people for a variety of reasons. But it's not all COVID related, but it's still a challenge. So if you can hang around a little longer, it probably would be welcomed, I'm guessing.
Sure, would be very welcomed, and I think this is the next few months I think are going to be fun. So I hope everyone decides to stick around.
All right, with that, does anyone want to make a motion to adjourn our meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
I will second that. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you for your time tonight and for your contributions. Oh, Michelle, sorry.
Say ayes.
Okay,
All in
all
favor?
in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.